Hi, I'm Stacy. Welcome to the kitchen of my old Kentucky home. Today on Bourbon and Biscuits, we're going to be making 2 bourbon treats that are sure to warm up your winter's night. Let's get started. Let's make some bread pudding with a Kentucky bourbon sauce. Here's what we'll need. A half a loaf of French bread, 1½ sticks of butter, 1 cup of heavy cream, 3 cups of milk, 2½ cups of sugar, 7 eggs, 2 tablespoons of bourbon vanilla extract, and 1/3 a cup of Kentucky bourbon. The first thing we'll need to do is cube our French bread. And you can really use other types of bread too, even sourdough. You can use leftover croissants or even biscuits. You'll want about 4 cups. The next thing we'll need to do is pour over our whipping cream and our milk. And we're gonna let that soak for about 30 minutes. Meanwhile, we'll beat our 6 eggs with 1½ cups of sugar and the 2 tablespoons of bourbon vanilla extract. We'll get that nice and creamy to pour over our soaking bread mixture. And our final step will be melting a 1/4 cup of butter and adding it to a 2-quart baking dish. We'll pour our basically pudding into this dish and bake it at 350 for 1 hour. Now we're going to make our Kentucky bourbon sauce. We're going to take 1 stick or a half a cup of butter. We're just going to melt that in a saucepan. Okay, now that the butter has melted, I'm going to slowly add this cup of sugar and a 1/4 cup of water. We're just going to let this heat through. Then we're going to add it to a beaten egg and add the 1/3 a cup of fine Kentucky bourbon. And then we'll have our Kentucky bourbon sauce. So this is completely set after an hour. I wish you could smell the aroma in my kitchen right now. It's going to be so good with that Kentucky bourbon sauce poured over it. So while we get plated up, let's go to Jessica, who's going to do a bourbon riff on an espresso martini to pair with this.
All right, so the cocktail that I'm making today is kind of a perfect marriage between a Manhattan and an espresso martini. And this cocktail was actually created at Proof on Main, which is the Urban Bourbon Trail stop in Louisville's 21C Museum Hotel, which is actually the flagship of the 21C Hotel brands. So to make this, we're going to do 1.5 ounces of Woodford Reserve. And then we're gonna do 1 ounce of coffee liqueur. And I've already got ice in my cocktail shaker here. Then we're also gonna do 1 ounce of sweet vermouth. Okay, now I'm gonna give all this a good shake. We're just going to strain this into a martini glass. All right. And then lastly, we're just going to garnish this with a Luxardo cherry. Dropped right into the glass. And there you have it. This is Proof's signature Darkened Manhattan. Well, Stacy, it finally happened. You made bourbon bread pudding.
I did.
This has actually been years in the making. Since the beginning of Bourbon and Biscuits, I've suggested that Stacy might want to make a bourbon bread pudding, but she has resisted.
And our producer, Cliff, also has been wearing me out. So why now? I just was tired of hearing it.
So in Louisville, especially when we started a culinary cocktail program, the Urban Bourbon Trail, restaurants were encouraged to make a food dish with bourbon in it, and 9 out of 10, mostly everyone, included a bourbon bread pudding on their menu.
Bread pudding.
So
bread pudding.
Wore Stacy out a little bit, but it's a nice chilly winter day here. It's a cozy, warm, delicious dessert. I really love this recipe.
It until I had 1,374 of them.
But you all are gonna love it. Trust me, you should try this out.
Good. And I haven't tried this yet, so see what this pairing is. So this was a riff on we've had those espresso martinis in Chicago, right, Hollis?
And so I've been in just the mood for a coffee and bourbon drink too, and found this one that was already a signature at one of our restaurants. What do you think?
I like that. I like that. I like it better. It's not as, I liked the espresso martini. It was almost like in your face, though. This is a little more subtle.
Yep, nice with the vermouth.
Yeah.
So you can just drink your dessert instead of having a bread pudding, which I will be having.
Well, cheers to that.
Cheers. We'll see you next time on Bourbon
And Biscuits. Yum.